Good morning to everyone at today's public hearing of Panel A of the Prosecutor Vetting Commission. My name is Christopher Lehman. I'm the chairperson of this panel, and I declare this session to be open. The Prosecutor Vetting Commission is established under Law 252 on the external evaluation of judges and prosecutors. Law number 252 establishes that this commission will undertake an ethical and financial evaluation of prosecutors who are identified in Article 3, Paragraph 1 of that law as subjects of the evaluation. This three-member panel is constituted to conduct the evaluation pursuant to Article 15 of Law number 252. This hearing is being conducted pursuant to the provisions of Article 16 of that law, as well as the Commission's rules of procedures for evaluations under Law number 252. The subject of today's hearing is Gheorghe Caragia, prosecutor in the Anti-Corruption Prosecution Office. Mr. Caragia, welcome to the hearing today. I am joined by my colleagues on this panel, Nadezhda Hryptievsky and Saskia de Vries. The panel is also assisted by members of the Secretariat. This hearing is open to the public and members of the media. The hearing will be conducted in interpretation into both Romanian and English, and for that reason, I will ask everyone to speak slowly and clearly for the benefit of the interpreters. The proceedings are being recorded. The recordings of this public hearing will be available on the Commission's website within 3 days after the hearing. During the hearing, one or more members of the panel may ask you questions, Mr. Caragia. Please answer them truthfully and completely. Your explanations are important to us in verifying your compliance with the criteria for financial and ethical integrity. In formulating our questions, we will take into account your privacy and, where required, the privacy of family members and close persons. So we will leave out any unnecessary details relating to ID numbers, bank accounts, specific addresses of real estate, and the like. For the protection of your privacy, we would ask you to do the same in answering any questions. We will also give you an opportunity at the end of this hearing to make a closing statement to the panel. I'll start briefly by reviewing the evaluation process for the subject. The Commission initiated its evaluation process on the 25th of May, 2024, by notifying the subject by email and asking him to complete and return the ethics questionnaire and a financial declaration form as required by Law number 252. The subject returned the completed questionnaire and declarations on the 13th of June, 2024. As part of the evaluation of a subject's ethical and financial integrity, the Commission also obtained information from many other sources, such as the National Integrity Authority, the State Fiscal Service, the General Inspectorate of the Border Police, other public institutions, financial institutions, and open sources. The Commission assesses the information it obtained from these sources for relevance and reliability. The Commission also sent you 2 rounds of questions, the first on the 25th of October 2024, and then again on the 13th of November 2024, to which you responded. On the 30th of June of this year, the panel notified the subject of today's hearing and further advised the subject that the panel, after the analysis of the accumulated information, had certain doubts to discuss with you. Those doubts were detailed in an annex to the hearing that were sent to you. Mr. Caragia, thank you again for appearing today. I'll begin with 2 short questions for you before I yield to my colleague, Ms. de Vries. And I'm going to ask you to respond, to Nadia, okay, to Ms. Hryptievsky. I'll ask you to respond in a complete and truthful manner to the questions I pose, as well as to the questions posed by other panel members. First, I want to clarify if you want to make any additions or corrections to the information that you have provided up until now to the Commission.
Thank you. I have nothing to add, nothing to correct. Everything is entirely truthful.
And let me clarify, the answers that you provided to the ethics questionnaire and the declaration that were returned back on the 13th of June 2024, are those answers still accurate as of today? In other words, is there anything to update with regards to what was submitted in June of 2024 that's now changed?
The situation hasn't changed at all. All additions, just a second.
Sorry.
I added through the documents and declarations that I filed recently to the Commission with a notice. Those are all the details that I can and I was able to provide to the Commission with my whole sincerity.
Thank you very much. At this point, I am going to give the floor to
am
Ms.
să-i dau
Hriptievski.
cuvântul doamnei Hriptievski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Domnul Caragia, da, vom vorbi.
Mr. Caragia,
mai aproape să fie mai comod
you could put closer, and could you please speak a bit louder to make sure that our interpreters can hear you? The first issue that we have some questions about relate to non-declaring cash at the end of 2018 in your annual declaration. So in the annual declaration you filed to the National Integrity Authority, so the information that you provided to the Commission you mentioned, answering round one of questions, that you reported in the 2018 declaration the amount of 40,000 euros that you obtained at your wedding, and at the end of that year you had around 29,000 euros, but you did not declare that money. Is it right? You also explained that you contacted the National Integrity Authority, which explained that if you declared in the income part, if you declared that donation already, then it is not mandatory to mention it under cash chapter as well. Is that right? Please confirm. They are not using microphone. Sorry, he's not using the microphone, so I can't hear what he says. However, in the regulation on filling out the declaration, it is provided that both of them had to be declared, donation as well and cash. Could you please explain this contradiction between what the regulation states and what the people at the National Integrity Authority told you? First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Christopher for the introduction. I thank you for this question, and as I answered in the question rounds, as of today, I find, as I did find in the question rounds, that this was a mere omission. I had no reason not to include that amount in the asset declaration, because that's the impression I got. I want you to understand the context. When I was filling out the Declaration of Assets and Interests in 2019, I was thinking the following. If I declare in Section 8 of the declaration an income of 40,000 euros, as I declared, that would mean a duplication of that amount if I mention it, the amount in cash, as I have. Should it be 40,000? But I spent part of it. So if I mention the remaining amount, that would be a duplication. And in order to solve this unclarity, I called the hotline, which is available today as well, of NIA, and I explained them what wasn't clear for me. And the person at the other end of the line said that there will be no problem if you declare this income in Chapter 8 that included all the income obtained in 2018. Therefore, I admit maybe I was a bit neglectful at that time, but this was just an omission.
Vă mulțumesc pentru răspuns, pentru clarificare. Deci, noastră,
Thank you for your
această clarificare
answer.
de la ANI, de la Autoritatea
This
Națională de Integritate
clarification from NIA, from the
ați
hotline,
obținut ulterior, dar nu
you obtained
înainte
it
de-
later on, not before you filed the declaration.
Deci în momentul în care eu completam
At the time when I was filling it out on my own, in my office,
cu această problemă și ca să
found
până
that
la
I had
semnarea
this
acestui
difficulty, and before signing that digital document, I decided to call the hotline, and that's what I did. It's not like I signed it and called afterwards. No, I called them before signing the declaration. I consulted them, and when they
de fapt
answered, I did sign. So the thinking is the same for me even today. Once you enter the income amount in column 8, I think it is useless to duplicate the same amount of money if you have it in cash or on some account.
de fapt nu pe un cont,
Well,
dar să
not on an account, but to declare it if you have it in cash. To this day, this explanation makes sense to me, and I hope that the Commission will believe this explanation is logical as well. Do you understand the difference? Talking about income you obtained, that's the total 40,000 is what you obtained, but the other chapter is what you have in cash at the time of filing the declaration. These are two different things.
Înțeleg că este o diferență.
I understand it is a difference, otherwise it wouldn't be included in the NIA document. And as I said, I admit this was a mistake of mine when filling out the declaration, and for future I will take into account these details, as I did in the subsequent years, because in the subsequent years I understood it, especially starting 2022, when the pre-vetting commission started the activity and all this process of declaring became more robust. Last question on this topic from me. You calculated the amount of 29,000 that you had at the end of the year. Is that precise amount or approximate, or how did you get to that amount that you declared in the answer to the first round of questions? As I answered in the question rounds, this amount relied mostly on the major purchases that we made. Immediately after the wedding, we went on a vacation. You don't need to provide details. It was an approximate amount, because honestly, I don't even know if at the end of the year I had 29,000 precisely, or I had 28,500 or 29,600. I would like to explain once more, and I did that in the question rounds too. The cash or the gifts that were offered at the wedding to me and my wife were not all in euros. They were in various currency, in Moldovan lei, I think even Romanian lei, euros and US dollars, and British pounds. And I converted that amount, thinking of converting all other currencies into euros. And I was I looked into the exchange rate that could have been applied then, and for me it was more or less equal to 29,000 euros. So I would like to reiterate, it was not exaggerated, it was not understated, because in 2018 I did not have any plan for the future. I did not anticipate such an exercise as this one. I did not make any purchases right after that to be able to or to have to explain the source of the funds, because the Commission can see in the materials that you received, but when we had the wedding on September 14th, both my wife and I had our own cars. My car was purchased 2 or 3 months before the wedding. We had apartments of our parents that were located in Chișinău. So the need to have an own apartment or an own house did not exist. Not for me, not for my wife, not for any of our family members. As you noticed, my parents are not in the country. My mother left in 2002 and my father left in 2016. My wife's parents, her mother, is not in the country since 2002. And the father-in-law, I can't say he was away, but well, he often was visiting, sometimes staying a couple of months, but in the period between 2011 to 2017, he was away. So I am from Nisporeni. My wife is from Nisporeni as well. Well, maybe you don't want to give personal details. That's not a problem. We are from the same municipality. Our houses are like 500 meters away from each other. My parents and her parents had detached houses in the village, and they had an apartment each in Chișinău. And in 2019, not too bad to say, end of 2018, when I had to declare the cash, I did not have any purpose to hide financial resources because I had no plan, as I said from the beginning, to purchase something grand, or meaning that I would need to confirm some potential subsequent purchase. And then I used some money in 2019. We'll go to that. We'll discuss that in the next topic. So these were the money that were left and money that was left. Thank you. I don't have any other questions here.
Move to the next one.
Nadia, is that complete all questions or?
No, I asked if you have any questions or can I move to the next issue?
You can move.
Okay. I'll one after another because they're very close, and then you can intervene afterwards.
Mr. Caragia, following few questions are related to issue 2 and 3 from the hearing notice. The first one is a clarification one. For the car you purchased in 2019, did you use other sources of funds except for the cash you had that we discussed, the one that you had at the end of 2018? If I say that I used exclusively money from the wedding, I would risk to make an error, uncontrolled or unthought. So I will explain once more for clarity reasons. The money that we got at the wedding, we kept the money with my wife in the place where we were living. Sometimes we're taking money from there if we needed to buy something, but during all that time I was working and I had a salary. My wife was not working. Since 2018, after the wedding, I was supporting the family. Maybe an older or rudimentary practice for Moldovans, including for myself, is to withdraw money from your salary account and to keep the money in cash. Now, it seems stupid to me, but in 2018, things were different, and I would often withdraw the money from the salary account in order to keep it in cash at home. However, the amount for the purchase of that car was from the money we got at the wedding, because as I recall, we went with my wife to the bank. The car was new, purchased from a salon or from a car dealership. and that car dealership did not accept cash payment. You needed to pay it by bank transfer. So we went to Nisporeni, because in 2019 I was living in Nisporeni district in a village. I went to the bank and I deposited that cash in euros. And I saw in the materials that the Commission shared with me that the amount was the euro amount that but it wasn't 24,000 precisely, but it was 24,400 and something more euros. And that means if the amount was in euros, it means all that money came from the wedding money, because after that I did not have money in euros except for money that I obtained later on other occasions like christening parties, birthdays. So one could say that all that money was spent from the wedding gift money, because neither I nor my wife had any plans to invest or to spend that money, because before the wedding we were provided for by our parents, and once we had the wedding and obtained the gifts, and since I was already working for almost a year by that time, I was hired in 2017, our parents somehow limited almost to zero help, except for the gifts declared previously. So we limited our financial support. Since then, we are on our own. Thank you. Again, a clarification question. According to your declaration, between 2021 and 2023, you lived in your parents-in-law apartment. It was purchased in 2020 by your father-in-law. Is that correct? Now, in the question rounds you received from the Commission, you were asked about the sources that your father-in-law had to purchase the apartment, given the connections of the fact of you living in that apartment. And you provided information about the income of your mother-in-law between 2012 and May 2020 in a total amount of 81,000 euros. Correct?
Corect.
Correct. At the same time, the panel found, based on the information received from financial institutions, that between 2012 and May 2020, your parents-in-law transferred to Moldova an amount that was much bigger. The difference was around 90,000 euros. Could you explain the difference, please? Yes, thank you. To support what I'm going to declare, I attached some documents for the Commission after the hearing notice, and I hope that the Commission will take into account those statements I provided. And in relation to the materials that the Commission already has, I'd like you to draw an objective conclusion about those circumstances. I confirm that even myself, the period 2014-2015, I received from my parents-in-law, well, they were not parents-in-law at that time, we only started to be together with my future wife, but in 2014 and 2015 I received from parents-in-law a transaction, not one transaction, but an amount of 15,000 euros in 5 transactions, 3,000 euros each. 2 transfers from the mother-in-law and 3 transfers from the father-in-law. This information is included in the bank data provided to you by commercial banks. Honestly, I don't remember very well why was it necessary for me to get that amount to receive that amount of 15,000 euros, but I knew that my wife was getting regularly money from her parents, from her mother mostly, that she was keeping at home, and when her father was coming home, or if he was at home when she received that money, because from what I remember, all transfers were made through one bank only, and that is proven by bank details. And since I and my girlfriend, future wife, we were in Chisinau studying at that time, my future father-in-law was in Nisporeni. Sometimes he was in Italy. So she was keeping the money, and as soon as he came, she would give him the money. What he was doing with the money, I don't know, you saw they had several procurements. And as most Moldovans go abroad, there are fewer cases when they invest money in Italy or wherever they are staying. They tend to send money home in order to build a house or to improve your living conditions. These 15,000 euros, to make it clear for everyone, this money did not belong to me in any way. As soon as I received the money, I gave it to my girlfriend back then, future wife. These transfers that are almost twice as big as the official income are explained by the fact that my mother-in-law had an arrangement. She had one employment contract and an informal arrangement to get part of the money under the table. And I found out about that immediately after I received these doubts that you provided to me and about which I'm answering today. So until my being invited here, I did not know about those things. But I have always known that my parents-in-law, back in 2014 and 15, to this day, well, mostly the mother-in-law, I have to be, since she has been working since 2002 when she left, she worked almost continuously all of the time. She was a caregiver for elderly and almost no time off. And I knew always, and I was sure that all the money that we were sometimes benefiting from, like some gifts, or we were living in their house, for instance, all that money was obtained for legally working. When I found about the doubts, I was a bit shy to ask my mother-in-law directly what the situation was, because she never told me what her salary was or how much she earns in Italy. But she confirmed that part of her salary was paid under the table. The fact that money was transferred officially through a commercial bank proves the legality of that money, and I think that the Commission should not interpret it in a way that these financial resources are illegal or come from activities that would cast a doubt on, among other things, on me as a subject of evaluation. This is how it is explained, the fact that almost half of the salary that she obtained was paid under the table, half of it was paid on a card. She, even last week, on the 1st, immediately after the hearing notice, because I was notified on the 30th, she came to Moldova. It wasn't a surprise visit, it was a planned visit. She bought the ticket a couple of months ago. And somehow I was in this situation because if she was in Italy, maybe I would have asked her to provide a written statement from some people that she worked for when she was getting that money. But she felt somehow shy about that, because people in Italy wouldn't like some authorities to find out that they are paying salaries under the table. But as it was mentioned in other situations of candidates, some who passed, some who failed, vetting and pre-vetting, under the table salaries is not something that's unique to me or my situation. It happened in other cases, so please treat this as it is because even the Court of Accounts recently in a study found that even Moldovans are the ones that get salaries under the table, and that is an issue not only Italy, but for other European countries all, and for our country as well. So this discrepancy between transfers that were made, I also counted how many transactions took place, and I found that actually the Commission missed one transaction. There have been 175,000 euros, not 172 as mentioned in the table. And you notice that all transfers were made almost always in this fixed amount as 3,000 euros. As my mother-in-law explained, that was the most advantageous way to transfer money at the most suitable commission fee. Probably that was her salary, because I noticed in her bank turnover that the transfers were monthly. Sometimes she was transferring money twice a month, but I'd like to draw the attention of the Commission that the salary since 2002 until 2012, when these transfers were calculated, was not calculated for my mother-in-law, but that should be taken into account. And also, from the discussions I had with my mother-in-law, she told me that until 2010, she was not transferring money regularly because the mindset was different, and she was mostly sending money by bus or bringing money when she was coming home. Later on, if I try to remember it, somewhere in 2015, when I got those transfers, I also told her that she should try and transfer money from Italy via commercial banks, because my parents-in-law are relatively young. My mother-in-law is not even 52, and they had plans for their future. They were setting the foundation for a peasant farm to be created in their community, and I told them, try to transfer all the money through banks, because you'll get to a point when Moldovan authorities will ask you about the origin of the funds, and you will not be able to justify where from you received the money, because no one is interested in you working in Italy or somewhere else when you try to make a purchase. When you want to be able to work legally, you need legal justification, and she listened to that advice, and as you notice, after that period, she had been constantly transferring money.
So your mother-in-law now, is she completely back? She was just on a short visit to Moldova. Although they continue to invest in Moldova, they are looking forward to develop a plum drying business. They've set it up back in 2016-17 when they started building a storage facility. And last year, actually, they've continued to further expand and enlarge the area of that factory or plum drying facility. So they've sold the apartment they used to have in Buyucan since back in 2011. All of this documentation was made available to the Commission. However, last year, my mother-in-law got the Italian citizenship, and she actually also has an illness. Well, you don't have to go into those details. And because she requires frequent treatments, certain treatments, she's mostly based in Italy because she's got health insurance that covers healthcare services there. So for a while, she's being provided some services, she's getting some exams there, and when she has a little vacation, she travels to Moldova. And the last question regarding this matter from me is whether you can explain the source of your father-in-law to buy the 2020 apartment. Until 2023, we've got a confirmation, but from then on, we don't know if you're staying there or not. Now, the funds, the money, was the money received from Italy, or did he work too, and other funds as well? I will confirm that I still live in that apartment. My wife, she's the only child of her parents. And all the investments and all the hard work of the parents, of my parents as well, is only that my difference is that I do have two other brothers. But all the hard work of our parents was dedicated to us. It was for our sake, to help us have a better future. And as I was waiting for this hearing, I've seen here at the NIJ on the wall a picture that I think is very representative. There are three people with luggages next to them, and there is a message at the bottom of it saying, "People migrate for a better future." That's what our parents did. The money, the sources for the money with which the 2020 apartment was purchased, well, those were Italian sources. The money came from Italy. I can't say my father-in-law didn't work, because for this entire period of time, given his profession, he's the one who built the storage facilities, being a mason, so everything that he could do with his own work, he would, with his own capacity, as it is quite typical of people living in the countryside and who are good home keepers. And the money that was given, that money was based on the savings he was making at home from the transfers made by the mother-in-law. The money she invested in the peasant household, peasant farm, and the other assets that they purchased, other goods. Well, that was much less than what they would manage to put aside as savings. If you have a relative, or if you are familiar with the situation, when parents leave, they want to do their best to help us grow up in many ways. And then for some, this becomes, they become used to that lifestyle, and they can't be comfortable again in Moldova the way that it used to be before they left. So they are collecting money, saving money to make that place pretty for their older years. But I don't know if somebody really gets to enjoy the product of their hard work, because many work themselves too hard to be able then to enjoy the fruit of that work. And my wife was dedicated 9 years of education to medicine. That was also thanks to the parents. If it wasn't for that, even I wouldn't have been here today if it wasn't for the support of our parents. Thank you. I only asked because it was not very clear out of your answers. Your father-in-law traveled a lot, and it wasn't clear if he was working in Italy or just visiting. Well, so to speak, that visit was doing something nice and pleasant and useful at the same time. He was not being paid a salary, and he was also not working informally quite so. But my mother-in-law, to remind you, so he was helping the mother-in-law, is that right? Yes, and that was accepted by the people they were working for, and he was comfortable with that, and the mother-in-law was comfortable with that as well, and their employers as well, because everybody was somehow happy with how things worked out. But he was providing support, help, meaning that she is not very tall, and she's quite fragile, and she had some health issues, so he was helping her out because she undertook certain commitments towards those Italians. They were taking care of people who had mental illnesses, locomotor issues as well. So it was quite hard for her to do the work. So my father-in-law would visit her now and then at home too, somebody had to take care of that. They've always had some livestock around the household, and somebody needed to take care of that. Not to mention that their daughter was home alone somewhat, and she needed support. Thank you for your answers.
Mr. Caragia, at this point, I don't believe there are any further questions from the panel. And I do give you now the opportunity to make a brief closing statement.
Da, vă mulțumesc pentru că m-ați
Thank you for
ascultat.
having listened to
Eu
me.
sper că am fost nu doar ascultat,
I hope
ci
that I was
auzit
not
și
only
înțeles.
listened to, but also
Așa
heard
cum
and
îmi place și
understood,
mie să
as we also like
cu aceste
to
fraze
often
care pe alocuri
say
par
this,
doar
that
cuvinte, însă
sometimes it feels like it's just words, but it's far more behind
Așa
it.
cum am menționat, mi-am
As
dedicat
mentioned,
și
I
eu
have
familia
dedicated in my family to
mare
have
parte din viață
devoted
pentru
a big share of their
a mă afla astăzi
lives
în fața dumneavoastră.
towards where I am now. This helped me be what I am now, to
Eficient în
come to this point
explicații.
of my life. I hope I was clear in my explanations, and I hope the Commission will take into account all the information that was also
Sincer să vă zic,
shared after the questions of the rounds of questions asked, and given the rounds of questions and then this long half-a-year break, I thought there will be no questions to be raised with me. In my mind, I was thinking that there can't be any questions to be raised as far as I'm concerned. I never thought I was a person who one could have any doubts about. So I was always doing my best to do my work with honesty, and in my answers that I provided to the questions you've asked, I was sincere in my answers and informed.
succes colegilor care urmează
I would like to
să treacă prin acest proces.
wish the best of luck to my colleagues who will undergo this process. It is stressful.
Însă,
However, I hope that things will get better.
Thank you, Mr. Caragia, for your participation today and throughout the evaluation process. That will conclude the hearing. The panel will deliberate on the matter, and the hearing is closed.